Hi, welcome to the very first episode of Between Two Buffs. I am your hostess, Senior Airman SrA Gray, with the 2nd Security Forces Squadron. I just want to take the time to actually introduce our very special guest, the installation commander himself, Colonel Mark Dmytryszyn.
Hey,
welcome,
gang.
Sir.
How's it going?
So before we kind of just jump into all the juicy stuff, just kind of want to ask, who is Mark Dmytryszyn? Like, where does this extravagant name come from? Because I'm sorry, I can't really speak for anyone else, but I've always wondered, like, what are your origins?
Okay. Well, that's classified, so we're probably going to have to stop. No. So it is a Ukrainian origin. And if you're not familiar with where Ukraine is, it's kind of southwest border of present-day Russia. So if you drew a line going southwest out of Moscow and southeast out of Berlin, out of Germany, you'd find Ukraine. My father is from a town on the western edge called Lviv. A number of different spellings: Lvov, Lviv, Lwow, and in fact, in one version, it's called Lemberg, depending on the historic lanes. His parents were dairy farmers. They had to escape during World War II and escaped both the Nazis coming east and Soviet Russia coming west. Bounced around a bunch of what they call displaced persons camps. This is, people without a home. Eventually, at the end of the war, made their way to New York, to then Philly, Pittsburgh, Chicago, Milwaukee, and eventually ended up in Minneapolis. So I am, I guess, first generation Ukrainian on my father's side. On my mother's side, I'm kind of standard kind of upper Midwest, and it's a mix of German, Irish, Swiss, Scandinavian, so on and so forth. But yeah, so it's Dmytryszyn. There are no vowels. Okay. Sometimes the Z is replaced with an H. But yeah, that's where I come from, and that's where Dmytryszyn is, and that's my story.
Well,
and I'm sticking to it.
Thank you. Now we know. So put all the questions to bed with that. So before we kind of also get into it, could you just kind of tell us, one, thank you for this opportunity, creating this open dialogue with leadership, because that is something that the airmen are looking for and that we really appreciate. So, but why did you come up with the idea to create this podcast?
Right. So first of all, it wasn't my idea, but thanks for giving me the credit for it. It really came out of the public affairs team. And we spent a lot of time, public affairs and the front office leadership, but really Chief Chaddock and I thinking about how do we communicate to all of the audiences that are on Barksdale Air Force Base and interested in things in Barksdale Air Force Base. And some of you have probably heard Chief and I talk about this, but we refer to it, there are 5 generations of audience here on the base. There's our Gen Z, soon to be replaced by I think they're called the Gen Alpha, the folks that are in, elementary and high school now, and will eventually be, the new recruits for the Air Force and the Space Force here in a couple of years. Our Gen Zers, our Millennials, our Gen Xers, our Baby Boomers, and then there's a generation before that some refer to as the silent generation. It's kind of not World War II veterans and their dependents. It's more of kind of the Korean War veterans and their dependents before you get to the Baby Boomers. And we just said, hey, we know we're not effective at getting the message out. We know that there are other tools out there. We know that the leadership before us has put into place some things like having a YouTube channel. And so we thought, hey, let's take advantage of the infrastructure that we have right now and see if we can find a way to be more effective at our communications with all of our audiences. Now, some of it is kind of the formal things that you and I were talking about before. Hey, if it's a gate closure or COVID shots or, advertising for meals at the Buff or Hangar 2 or whatever that is, okay. But some of it's just, here's what's going on and the stories that go with what's going on, what an airman's, like Big A airman's life is like, what brought them to the Air Force, what keeps them going day in and day out. And we just thought this is a chance to know airmen, Big A airmen. When I say Big A airmen, I mean our enlisted officers, civilians, contractors, active guard, reserve, the dependents and family members that go with it. It's not just those of us wearing the uniform right now. To learn their story, to understand who they are, excuse me, and then to take advantage of the greatness that is out there in linking up world-class airmen with fantastic members of the Big A airman community and just build more growth, community, and resiliency in us. So we're giving it a shot. Like you said, this is our first one, so we're going to see how this goes. We definitely are excited to bring more folks on, so I'll look to the camera for this. If you have interest in participating in the podcast or producing the podcast or in any way at all being involved in the podcast, please let us know. There'll be something at the end that PA will share with you on how to make contact on it. But we're looking forward to bringing more Big A Airmen into this, so you won't always listen to me talk about things that nobody's really interested in.
Well, thank you for that. So just to kind of go on and roll into it, the first real question was, when you were assuming command, coming into the middle of a pandemic, obviously, you know, commanders come in, they kind of have like a little set game plan for an idea of what they want like their command to look like. Sure. What was your mentality? How did you feel? Like, what were your first thoughts coming in? Like, oh my goodness, we're in the middle of a pandemic right now. Like, this is not a part of the plan. Like, what was your first idea, your first thought for this?
Yeah. So I watched the pandemic, but from a different point of view. You know, some would say a different set of lenses, because I was deployed to the Middle East. So I was watching, how do we move people, right? And selfishly, how do I get home? With all of that. So coming in, it was a matter of kind of flipping my view to go, how do we continue to provide our various flavors of mission while at the same time protecting everybody? And at that point in time, this was, you know, pre-vaccine. There was a lot of kind of questioning the science that was out there, the facts. If you've, you know, heard of statements like alternative facts, this is kind of where some of those events had started to pop up, and trying to make sure that we as both wing and installation leadership were able to present the facts as we best understood them in the most clear means and at the most timely and appropriate location, so that people were aware. And to do all of that while still keeping, you know, the big mission going, flying airplanes, defending the gate, handing out prescriptions, you know, repairing the infrastructure, everything that's done here on the base. So that was my priority going in, was to make sure that we could keep mission going, but also protecting everybody from COVID, and then trying to rapidly restore some elements of normalcy with COVID that, you know, everybody wants to go back to February 2020 in terms of everything that they can do, and we're working on it.
Do you feel like, as a wing, that's something that we're kind of like lining up to the ideals that you have for us, or is there like any improvements that we can probably do?
What a great question. So first of all, nothing but impressed, proud, blown away, just, you know, grinning from ear to ear at what both the 2nd Bomb Wing and Barksdale Air Force Base has done in the short time that we've been here. I say short, but it's been 6 months, and in a knock on wood here 2-year command tenure, that's a quarter of it already, and many of the goals and objectives have already been reached, which is fantastic. So now what I get to do is go, well, what more can we do, or more importantly, what more do we want to do? Our hires will tell us, you know, certain things to do. The BTF missions have picked up a number of other things with dynamic force employment, DFE, as well as our protection of the installation, and all the things that go on here are going to continue. But what more do airmen want to do? What more do airmen want? And what more can the chief and I provide to the airmen? So we've kind of shifted our focus from making sure that mission is focused on, because it has been, it runs well. Everybody's executing at the top of their game on that. The chief and I are not concerned about mission. We're not overly concerned about mission. We know it's out there, and we know we still have to help support it and resource the airmen. But now we're like, how can we make airmen's lives better? How can we make them more resilient? What can we do, hopefully coming out of COVID, to make things at Barksdale and in the, you know, wider Shreveport, Bossier, Barksdale area better for all of our Big A airmen?
Well, thank you for that. Kind of to just play off of that, obviously, like you stated, that the mission itself has picked up a little bit more, like the op tempo for it has picked up, and kind of like the subject of airmen being burnt out is something that we're facing now. So how do you see us kind of like combating that and like trying to like get back to those airmen, or just letting them know like, hey, like we see you, we understand, like we're in this with you as well?
Yeah. So first of all, totally understood because it's not seen from afar. It's lived among everybody. If you're tired, we're tired. And by we, I mean, Chief and I and the other leaders. So we're not operating any different from that. A couple of things I think we need to maybe parse out. Number one is being tired from being fatigued and tired and fatigued from being burnt out. I think we've all can recognize that we've been tired, right? We stayed up too late watching a movie or talking to friends, FaceTiming or Zooming with them, or, I played a game late or whatever those things are. I was TikToking or I was watching too many TikToks, all of that. And, I didn't get enough sleep. And I think tired, well, not being a medical professional, the way I view it is my body didn't get enough rest. Maybe I worked out too hard at the gym or whatever my fitness was, and I just kind of, I pushed it and I just didn't get enough sleep. I was swinging between shifts. I was going from days to mids or to swings, or I was running a Panama schedule, and my body's a little out of whack, and I didn't get enough sleep. I didn't get enough rest, and so I'm tired. Being tired for a long period of time with persistency and consistency, I think leads to fatigue. And then we are all at a human level operating at less than our full capacity. So I watch, this week was, I think, a great example of where all of our team went above the 80% normal that I really hope everybody can operate at. And we're pushing into the 90s or maybe up towards 100 to get jets out the door, BTFs, or cooking meals, or defending the gates, or administering shots with the latest round of COVID vaccines that came in. And so I think we went above and beyond, and so people can be tired after this week, and I fully understand and recognize that. If we kept going at that rate, I think we could run into people that are fatigued, big airmen that are fatigued. And I think that gets addressed by watching workloads, shifts, task balancing, kind of all those things that frontline leaders do and pay attention to. That to me is very different than burnout, which is where you're going. I think burnout comes from lack of connection. And it's not a fault, it's just an understanding to say sometimes all of us don't understand why we're doing what we're doing and how that ties to the bigger mission. Or, hey, why is prepping meals or repairing a broken gas line, how does that lead to airplanes flying out of here and go and do what they're doing around the world? So not having that connection, that tie to the mission to give that added worth to what it is that we do. I think there's also a piece where maybe we don't get to connect personally with folks. COVID, of course, is not helping that, especially with not limited social opportunities or being cramped up in your room or on a ROM or something like that, where I think you can feel burnt out if you don't have those two connections. One, how you tie directly to the mission, and that can be easily explained, but I think that's definitely a failure on my part on helping drive that. And the other is not having those person-to-person connections, whether it's with your fellow work center members or whether it's your peers in an age group or in the community or reaching back to family and friends, whatever it is. I'm concerned about burnout because that's a bigger issue. That means that we're failing to bring members into the family. We can work on being tired and fatigued, but burnout takes a lot more attention. And I think the way you get after that is you have to know the airmen to the left and the right of you, in front of you and behind you at a personal level, and have some appropriate and respectful connection there.
Yes, sir. And like I said, I really feel like we're just bouncing stuff off each other right now because there was actually a quote that I was looking into, and it was actually from the Chief of Staff of the Air Force, retired, General Goldfein. Yep. And he said, and I quote, "The airmen want to know why, so if the mission allows it, tell them." Kind of just like how you were saying, like they don't really understand the full totality of everything. They don't know what happens whenever those jets are generated and they're pushed out of there and stuff like that. So how do you feel about this quote? How do you think we can then incorporate into the second bomb wing mission as well?
Well, let's look at this last week, right? So we flew a whole bunch of our team members and a lot of cargo out to the Pacific in support of a bomber task force out there. Jets are out there. We did some things flying to the CENTCOM theater where we did the out and back. They're called Conus to Conus, but those, up near for like 40 hours in the airplane. And, just imagine spending 40 hours in your car and you can't get out of your car. Yeah. So I've seen you on the flight line. You and I have interacted, I would say, a good amount together. How do you think, if you were me, how do I explain to the defenders? I go to guard mount. How do I explain to them how they are tied to jets going around the world, passengers and equipment going out to support those aircraft, and as well as when we don't do all that, the jets take off from here, they come back to here, but they go to the other side of the globe and they give support to a combatant commander, or they give an adversary maybe a moment of pause, or it helps us in the competition sphere. How would you suggest to me, or if you were me, how should I explain that?
So you did something a few months ago that I just absolutely loved. I don't know if you remember or not. We were getting ready for either BV, GT, PV, one of them, and
All the acronyms.
all of them, A, B, C, D. We just gonna put them all in there. So you brought us in to the IOC, and you had different time slots set up, and basically we got to get a intel briefing on the different sorties that we were going to be flying, the mission, kind of typically who we were going up against. Even though it might have been a mock, it was still something that made me feel involved. Like, it was more than just standing outside for 12 hours on the flight line, standing in front of a B-52. It allowed us to see the total picture. Like, okay, once we generate these aircrafts and we hold them down and then they push out of here, like they're going here, or they were able to do this. Something that really helped me was I did a BTF to Fairford once, and at the end of it, whenever we was getting ready, they was like debriefing us. It was like, hey, we were able to fly 40 successful sorties because of what you did. And that goes for the people in the kitchen, our firefighters, our maintainers who go out there, and even like LRS who were providing vehicles for us. So that was something that helped me. So continuing with those classified briefings and kind of giving us like a little snippet of what we're doing and like what happened on like the back end, that stuff. And then I always preach to my people, once you do something at the gates, you do a ticket, follow it up, see where that court martial goes, or get those stats. And I think that's something that, like in sports, like we base stuff off of stats. Like, yeah, like you perform well in the game, but how did you do overall throughout the season? So like those, maybe something at the beginning of the year, at the end of the year, having kind of like a mid tour. Yeah. Just kind of like getting those stats and everything, just to kind of see how did I play part in this and the success of that. So
okay, I appreciate that. I think we can do that, whether it's before the event or after the event or a roll up. I appreciate that. That's something that we can get after. I do want to talk to you afterwards though about how we went from a ticket to a court martial, but I think I think that's for something else. And then there's something you had mentioned about points. I don't know if you've heard Chief Chaddock talk about it, but he's like, you get 1 point for talking about it and 9 points for doing it. Yes, so how about I want to get all 10 points. So I'm telling you that we're going to do it, but you don't give me the other 9 points until all the defenders and the chefs and the POL and the mighty medics and all of that get in and out of those sessions a couple of times to really reinforce it. One thing that you brought up, here's a gee whizzer for you. It's an old person's term. So we have physical therapists and a chiropractor over in the med group. And we were talking about spending, like 30 plus hours like in your car for the jets going up and back. And just getting all, your legs get cramped, your back gets tight, all of that. They heard about this and they said, hey, we want to show you how to do stretches and exercise before you fly, while you're flying in the cramp jet, and then afterwards on that. And we had some takers for this last set of sorties. So I think there's more opportunities like that to tie people into the mission. We definitely want to get more people onto the jet for familiarization and orientation flights, so that you can come back and go, hey, I sat in that thing for 4 hours. 1, it smells terrible. 2, there's no place to go. But 3, I now have a better understanding of what is going on, and therefore where's my part in it. But Chief and I, or more importantly me, owe it to you and everybody out there how you fit into the mission and a better understanding of where that jet is going on the day.
Well, thank you for that. And you kind of said something about points, so that kind of like goes into the next topic.
Yeah.
So, as we know, PT tests are on their way back. With that, a lot of people around have been wondering. So, as of now, the top floor, to the best of my knowledge, the track on the top floor has been temporarily closed because of COVID procedures and stuff. So we were wondering if we were going to be able to get like outside fitness gear and
Yep.
then also the tow bars, because you know with those sit-ups, like it's just 10 times easier to do a sit-up with that tow bar. Is that something that we're going to be that we can look to get outside gear and everything else, like moving forward as we still try to battle COVID in the midst of bringing back PT tests?
Yeah, no, great on that. So one, to use an old Top Gun reference, and hoping that the new movie comes out this summer, your data on the MIG is inaccurate. So the upstairs running track in the Bell Fitness Center in the main base gym is open. It's in very small allotments or increments. I think we can only have like somewhere between 5 and 10 people up there running. I'd have to go there and check, but it has been open. Second, we're opening up more and more stations in the cardio portions of the main base's fitness area. We're also looking at removing mask wear while you're on some of that cardio equipment for folks that, really, they've cranked that treadmill up to 10 or 11 and they've got it at, full elevation, and they don't need a restriction from a mask.
Don't need them passing out.
Yeah, you got it. We don't need that. That's for sure. But instead of putting out one of the COVID policy memos every day, every week as we relax these things, we wrote into the last one to say, because the situation is changing so rapidly, check in at the gym, at the front desk at the gym every time you go there and see what more has opened up. Because FSS and the gym folks are engaged with public health so that we can relax those things as quickly as possible to help with PT. I think the same thing is going on with the tow bars for the sit-up practice. I know that we'd really shrunk down the number of sites and bars that are available. I think that has opened up. But again, if you ask at the front desk, they will know and they'll tell you. But you're right. If you've never done the tow bar and now you got to do the tow bar in April or on from there, you probably want to give it a shot or two to understand.
We should just start putting tow bars around the installation.
Just random places.
Random tow bars around the base.
CE would love that. Hey, can you put one in the middle of the intersection for me there? And then
put it right here at the roundabout at the front gate. The defenders need it.
Yeah. The other thing that you'd sorry, I can't check your ID right now. I'm just repping it out. Trying to work on my beach body here. The piece about outdoor equipment, we're working on that as well. So one, if you were in the Bell Fitness Center and you were walking down kind of where the racquetball or squash or volleyball courts are, there's a rig in there. We're going to move that outside. What takes a little bit of time is the company that I think put it together has to come out and help us reset it back up. So that's a little bit of a setback, which is frustrating to everybody. What I would really love to do is to go over to where Airmen is, over by the Munn side. And there's a track out there. I don't know how many people know that, but there's an official, 400-yard running track. It's reddish, and it's not that rubberized stuff that's on the Bell. It's kind of it's like a cinder or something. It's a little dirt-like. But they've got they've got a standard infield for, football field or soccer pitch or whatever. I'd love to go cover that. With some kind of soft dome or something, so that you're not getting beat on by the sun. You can go out there while it's raining, maybe not a hurricane, but they'll be always. And then put a bunch of those kind of small Connex like HIIT or CrossFit like equipment items out there for folks, so that they can do more of that outdoor fitness.
Like a jungle box.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly. I think a lot of us have seen that in like forward deployed locations. I think I really would like to do the right thing for that. But what I don't ever want to do is say, this is the thing that I, Mark Dmytryszyn, want. I want to be able to say, as the installation commander or the bomb wing commander, what do the majority of the airmen want? And then let's go pursue that. Yes, sir. So if folks have ideas, and now I put more on PA's plate here, but if you let us know, work it up through your leadership chain, or write into the commander's action line, or coordinate with the gym or FSS, let us know what you want, and we'll go pursue that.
Especially making that transition, like we said, back into those PT tests, because I know physical fitness, the most you can probably do right now is like go run down at the river or go climb the stairs at CenturyLink, which I do not recommend. If do those stretches, go see those chiropractors and do those stretches. But yeah, definitely something, just including the airmen and like trying to figure out like how do we make this easier. Like we understand that we've all been through something traumatic as COVID. So getting back into this, like it's not just we want you to fail. We do want you to pass your PT test. So trying to help you get back make that transition easier back into it. So
spot on with that. No, I don't want anybody to fail.
Yes, sir.
And I'm more interested in supporting fitness, less for passing the PT test and more for what it does. I think physical and mental wellness are tied together. Yes, sir. And so trying to give folks another outlet, especially after being cramped up for COVID. So you had it spot on. Speaking of CenturyTel, when I was here last time, we would PT down there and run on the stairs. Oh, that's awful. Oh, up and down and up and down. Everybody drove pickup trucks for some reason. And we would get three people to a truck. One was up in the cab with neutral, and they would steer, and the two would be behind, and they would push the truck. And you'd have to push it 3 rows of parking lot. So if you want to build, if you're not skipping leg day, that might be a good workout for you.
Well, thank you for that. So kind of talking about stress and COVID and everything, how do you as a installation commander manage stress? Like what are things that you do to actually alleviate that? Because I know like your job can probably be really, really tedious, even though you have your commanders and stuff like that. But what do you do as an individual to help alleviate stress in your life?
Yeah. So as an individual, not with the various hats I wear, I've gotten more into things that are like mindfulness and meditation and other opportunities to try to quiet my mind. I use various apps for that because I found that if I take like a 10-minute break and just kind of quiet my mind, the blood pressure goes down. I can think more clearly. I'm not blowing my top over something that I shouldn't be blowing my top over. My fitness has been lagging for a number of reasons. COVID is way down on the list. But I like doing those, HIIT HIIT CrossFit-like workouts. I also like to power lift, and I haven't been back doing that. But that when we were talking about, physical wellness tying to mental wellness, I know that my mental wellness has taken a hit because my physical wellness isn't there. And, I like to pick up heavy things and then drop heavy things and, repeat. And I haven't been able to do that as much. I also try to get after, whether you want to call it a hobby or a project, but to really immerse myself into something like that. I'm not the greatest, but I give it a shot with some home repair things. I just enjoy to tinker. I've been trying to repair and refinish a wooden propeller that was gifted to me by somebody, and it's just, it's a little bit here, a little bit there, but I get immersed in it, and I don't worry about things that are going on. I got another propeller that was given to me by somebody who somehow drove into a tree and it's all shattered. I don't know the story, but I can make up whatever I want at this point to work on those things. But then when I put kind of the boss hat, the job hat back on, any chance I get to go out and engage with airmen helps kind of refill the tank for me. And I know that it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to everybody until you get a chance to do it, but if you spend a lot of days, in meetings or just reading email and looking at briefings and all of that, to get out and to see the mission and to see how stoked and excited Big A airmen are to do their things, that puts kind of, energy back in my step. But those are the things that I do. But I'll tell you, I am a terrible example. I don't work out as much as I want to, much less as much as I should. My diet's not where I want it to be. Answering the phone in the middle of the night, that's not fun. I drink way too much coffee. So kind of this is a do as I say, not as I do kind of a thing. But I'm human like everybody else.
Honestly, and like I was just about to say, thank you for that just being open and honest about that, because that's something that me personally as an airman, I struggle with, because I'm always thinking like, okay, like I see my chief working out at like 5 a.m. in the morning. Like I know I'm not doing that. I'm not performing at the level that I should be. So just to hear that coming from you and like someone of your stature, like that does help out, like that vulnerability that you just created for us. Like, thank you, especially for that. And maybe we can try to get like some yoga classes going on
Heck
at
yeah.
the gym. Like I said, services are gonna hate us for putting all this on
Ah,
their plate.
no, they'll love it.
But maybe we can get some
Yeah.
kind of time to that physical fitness and then that stress relief as
Yeah.
well.
For me personally, kind of close this part out, I don't work out as often unless I have like a community that I join every day, or there's kind of like a competition, and not necessarily a formal competition, but I enjoy going to the gym and having a friend there that'll banter me, and that maybe they lift more than me, or they run faster than me, or they can do more push-ups than me or something. But it gives me a challenge to try to go for. So if there's somebody out there that wants to help me out, I'm definitely open to opportunities.
I have someone for you. His first name is Chief, last name Kazay. Second Security Forces Squadron. Tell him I sent you. I bet he would love the competition.
Awesome.
Yes,
well, Chief, I'm looking for you.
I hope he sees this, and I'll make sure I tell him whenever I get back to the unit. But kind of also to tie into like that stress relief, but then also hitting on like suicide prevention. I know that's something that the Air Force is not only long before COVID, but I'm pretty sure like it's, even though we stopped talking about it as much, but it's still something out there. So there's that saying that a kind act can go a long way, or just a show of being concerned can go a long way. Do you think that leadership, is there any way that leadership can like incorporate that into their airmen and like showing them that they do care? Do you think that even like makes a difference?
I think it makes a huge difference. What I'll say is the difficulty. This is not an out. This, I think, is an acknowledgement of the situation. Is we as leaders at all of the levels need to dedicate time to get to know your airmen more than just a last name or a block on a roster or somebody filling a shift or what have you. And that takes time. But once you crack that door open, you start some conversations, it slowly widens, is when you really have the understanding of the individual, when you can walk in and kind of read their body language and their facial expressions and go, hey, Asia, something's off today. What's up? Right? Oh, once again, my sister chose to buy shoes and not pay her share of the rent or something, right?
Yes, sir.
But you can't do that unless you spend sufficient time, and it's intense, it's personal. You have to kind of somewhat professionally and respectfully connect with that airman, and then to do it through your entire cadre of team. But it becomes a two-way piece, right? You and I have this, and I'm one of your airmen, and then you go to the next one, you go to the next one. Well, I pick up, kind of through proximity and osmosis, the engagement you had with, the airman to my left and the airman to my right on this one, and we get tighter, and I can go to my peers and go, hey, something. You doing all right? You there? You okay? And, by that point, you can then read into things when you see a text or a Snapchat or some kind of posting on another social media platform to go, something's not right. But I think the only way to get there is to have to spend that time. And so I've had some really low points in my life, and I was TDY for a school program. It was one of the darkest days of my life. I was really, really low. And a couple of friends, classmate friends of mine, who we had spent enough time together that were able to read body language and know something was like, without saying a word, they knew something was wrong. Yes, and we went out and we laughed for like 4 hours at things. And that's what I needed right then and there. And it kept me from I didn't have much farther to go in terms of how low I was. But it's because they knew me and they could read me because we had spent the time together for them to go, hey, yeah, you're not right. Let's see if we can help you without actually addressing the issue kind of head on. So I think knowing your team members, knowing your friends and family with a little more than just kind of I work with them or I know their last name, I think really helps us in identifying those things so much earlier and really helping our family and friends out.
Like you said, just Establishing that relationship, to understand that we are a family. We all come from different backgrounds and we had different upbringings, but at the end of the day, you're my brother in arms and I am your sister in arms. And like you said, just that understanding, knowing who that person is, how they are on a day-to-day basis, and actually reading like body languages. That's another thing that you kind of brought up that I really, really agree with. You can tell a lot by a person, not only from like their facial expressions, but just how they carry themselves and conduct throughout the day. So just those two, just emphasizing on like building that relationship more than a mentor, more than a supervisor, more than a flight chief. And just at the end of the day, you're my wingman. And even if I can't talk to you, maybe I can go talk to chief. And you not taking that personal. And that was another thing that we always worry about. I don't want to upset my supervisor because I don't feel comfortable telling them this, but I'd rather talk to them. So just understanding that and maintaining that relationship with your coworkers as well. Like, hey, Asia came and talked to me about this. She didn't want to tell you because she felt like I could relate a little bit more, but we're still keeping you in a loop. And just that constant communication, that's something that's always going to like keep the Air Force and just everyone going in totality. It's just making sure that we work on that communication portion of it. So.
Spot on.
Yes, sir.
You got it.
Thank you. Thank you. Other than that, I think that pretty much just about wraps it up on my part. Do you have anything that you want to talk about, you want to ask, or is there something you want to put out there for the airmen to see if you can get something out of them?
Well, so first of all, fantastic job hosting.
Thank you.
Well, when Jimmy Kimmel and company are ready to move on, Asia Gray's going to be there. And big thanks to the PA team for putting this together. Like we opened with, this is our first time in it. We're going to, give it a few tries. We're going to adapt, see what works best. Looking for feedback, looking for inputs, looking for folks to join the team. Whether you want to be in the seats, you want to be behind the scenes, you want to do production, whatever it is. I know that there's a lot of folks out there. A couple of things just moving forward. Right, annual awards is right around the corner. I haven't seen all the details on it, but I know it's going to be something a little different. I think it might be in sports jerseys and jeans, but don't quote me on that.
Okay.
I hope so. Keep an eye out for Chief. He's already told me some of the costumes he may or may not. Oh, probably shouldn't have said that.
What is it, like Arkansas or something like that, or is it Boomer Sooner or something?
I don't know. I think he's gonna come in costume.
Oh, no.
And I don't necessarily mean a jersey. Oh boy.
We'll see.
Maintenance Professional of the Year, MPOY, which is a massive blowout. That's coming up. We still got a lot of mission. Everybody knows that, but they're going to be cranking away on it. But big thing, the weekend of 8 and 9 May, Saturday and Sunday, is the air show, the Defenders of Liberty air show. That's coming back. There's a Twilight show on Friday night, the 7th. So that's something. So if you're familiar with Shockwave, that's the jet engine on the back of the semi-truck. Apparently that looks really cool at night or in the whatever. But we got the Thunderbirds. We got a whole bunch of other folks coming in. Community's really excited because it's kind of a let's get over COVID mark. But I think it'll be great for us. Otherwise, PCS season is just right around the corner, so we're going to see a whole bunch of new friends coming in, on that. But back to this, Airmen, we're looking for your feedback. We want to know, is this what you want? How can we make it better? Who do you want in the seat? Asia Gray, I think, gets an A for today.
Thank you.
And just thanks for hosting this. This was awesome.
Thank you so much. Like I said before, thank you for the opportunity for this, and then just creating that open dialogue environment for us. Hopefully we can keep the momentum going and just have more of this. So like I said, the communication portion is key. So other than that, thank you so much. And thank you again for listening to the first ever episode of Between Two Buffs. Like I said, I am your hostess, Senior Airman Asia Gray, and that is all from me.